Welcome to Rates and Barrels, presented by E-Trade from Morgan Stanley. Derek Van Riper here with guest help today. Friends carrying me through with Eno Saris in Germany on this Friday. Today, I'm joined by one of my best friends in this business, a co-manager of my XFL team, the person currently leading mixed labor, at least at last glance, the person I'm chasing in that league. Great writer from Baseball HQ, great podcaster, one half of Bubba and the Bloom. I'll give you one guess. It's Ryan Bloomfield. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me.
Appreciate it, DVR. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And yeah, I wish first in mixed labor, wish we could get that XFL team over the hump, but we're trying.
We're living life in that league in the dreaded middle where
we're in the middle.
Core is good enough to talk us into always trying to go for it again and not tear it down. It's young enough and just enough talent. And I think it's clear seeing how the people that have been in the league longer go for the absolute just rip it down to the studs sort of approach, that we probably at some point will have to commit to something like that if we want to get out of the upper middle third, let's call it. I think we're right now, our best case scenario is probably finishing third place. And what I think is weird about most leagues is that feels awful. It's a 15-team league. It's a hard league. It's full of a lot of tandem groups and just very sharp people. It's very hard to be good in that league. And yet somehow third place would just seem disappointing to me. I don't understand why I can't accept that as a reasonably nice achievement.
I mean, keeper leagues are flags fly forever in keeper leagues, and that is I think why. And it's interesting. Like within our situation, like there's a scenario where a ton of stuff could go right, and we are up there, and you don't want to waste at least the chance of that happening because this is such a tough league in 15 teams. But like you said, if we get stuck in that no man's land, that middle zone, even that upper third zone, you keep being there every year. It's like, what have you actually done? So yeah, I mean, maybe we need to have some deep, honest conversations about where we're taking this thing. Probably not on the podcast though. I don't know.
No. This is more like a Friday after work Zoom call scenario where we really discuss how it's going to go. And I think at this point, we're pretty pot committed for this year. So we'll probably make a few small trades and hope everything falls into place just to tip our hand to anybody in the league. Use that to leverage trades with us. I'm sure that'll work out really well for everybody. But we got some bizarre players in that league. We'll get into that some other time, though. We have baseball news you should know to kick things off today. We'll talk about some waiver wire names of interest. There's a lot of overlap in those two groups. And later on in the show, Niv Shah is joining me to provide a hot dog review. Niv, of course, is our senior hot dog correspondent. Seattle really delivered. So we'll get to that in 50, 60 minutes or so from now. Okay, so let's get started with some news. Ryan, registrations for First Pitch Arizona are open. First Pitch Arizona this year, November 6th through the 9th, a great event put on by Baseball HQ. You're 30? 3-0? Man, we're getting 30. Old, dude.
I know. And I think at least I'm sure you've probably been going about the same time. I started going like 2012. So this is my 14th something odd year, if that math checks out. So before the call, we were talking about how old we are getting, and this is just kind of further nailing that home. But First Pitch Arizona, man, I cannot wait. We're less than 4 months away. It's November 6th through 9th. Out in Mesa, Arizona at Wrigleyville West, which is basically sharing the same property as the Cubs minor league facility out there that also hosts a bunch of Arizona Fall League games. And this year it's going to be Fall Stars weekend, hopefully a home run derby that weekend as well, right across the street. So it's just going to be an absolute blast. You get the whole fantasy baseball, kind of the panels. Eno, I'm sure will be there. He's been there the last 10 years at this point, but you get all that, but then you also get kind of the break of just like panel after conference. You get to go out to the ballpark and that sort of thing. We both have live podcasts, Rates and Barrels. Bubba and the Bloom are live out there. So just a great time. If anyone's considering it, head on over to baseballhq.com. We've got a First Pitch Arizona logo kind of on the right rail of the site. There's an early bird registration that's available through July 25th that you can take advantage of. That's the cheapest registration price that we offer. But schedule agenda should be getting put together over the next couple of months, and it's just one of my favorite weekends of the year. Get to see you out there every year, and it's a ton of fun. You brought Tecmo Bowl. You used to bring Tecmo Bowl out there, and we used to game out, so that was fun too. You also hosted auctions. Remember, you cut your teeth on both of us together running these attendee auction leagues that you would talk through for 4 hours.
So, yeah, those are fun. Being an auctioneer is fun. What I realized was those auctions were usually on a Friday night and they take 4 or 5 hours. And I was like, I like doing this and I like helping out, but I like helping out before 7 p.m. on Friday night. Like that is kind of my only, I don't mind I like doing the drafts out there, like participating in the actual drafts because I can, enjoy a draft with a beverage or two. I can't auctioneer with an alcoholic beverage. That doesn't seem quite right. It doesn't quite work, right? You got to stay sharp, stay on it. So that doesn't work, but highly recommend it. I think just about everybody I know who has attended at some point either goes back every year or wants to go back and does eventually return. So it's it's kind of like a big reunion. A lot of friends that are increasingly, I think, like trying new things at the event. And what I mean by that is like we had a wiffle ball game thanks to Justin Mason and Danielle Salinger. They put that together one year, and you and Bubba have put together a golf event in previous years too. So it's the conference, which is great. The games and now Fall Stars weekends like always the best weekend when it falls on that. And now we have these like more social events even outside of that people can be a part of as well.
Yeah, we're doing the golf tournament, the Bubba and the Bloom Invitational. We branded it as Thursday morning, right before the conference, so you can play golf with us if you're interested. But yeah, and also like I don't know, it's kind of been like there's always new faces out there too. It's not just like an analyst club or whatever that's out there that you can belly up to the bar and talk to you, talk to me, talk to any your favorite sport is always out there. Like I said, Eno's always out there, and it's just a very welcoming crowd if you've never been out there before, and if you're kind of like what do I do in a crowd of 150? It's kind of one big group of friends, which is really, really nice.
Yeah. Walk up to anybody and just say hi and start talking ball. Like it's a very welcoming group. Highly recommend it. Check out the details over at Baseball HQ. Got a prospect promotion getting us started here on this Friday, Ryan. Brice Matthews has been promoted by the Astros. There's power. He's popped 10 homers this year at AAA. There's speed. He's 25 for 31. As a base stealer, and a lot of hard contact too, a 44.5% hard hit rate at AAA this year. The reason we probably haven't seen Brice Matthews on this roster before now is that it still comes with a 30.2% strikeout rate. And it's difficult to really parse just how much of his strikeout rate could be influenced by the ABS system at AAA because he's always had high strikeout rates, and he's always had high walk rates too. And we've seen some guys hit that level and both go up. They strike out more and they walk more. I'm curious what kind of expectations you have for Matthews. He's been playing a lot of second base, mostly in second base every day at AAA Sugarland this year. Do you see him as a short-term regular in part because of that Jeremy Pena rib injury that is lingering on maybe a little bit longer than people expected?
Yeah, I think that's my biggest, question. And we'll have 3 days, before for leagues that run Sunday Fab to see how the Astros deploy Brice Matthews. Like they've been piecing it together with Pena out, with Mauricio Dubon mostly playing shortstop and mixing that. So I think that's hopefully, if we're in on Brice Matthews, that's what we want to see. We want to see Brice Matthews starting at shortstop every day this week. He's mostly played second base in AAA, so there's also a possibility that Jose Altuve maybe goes back to the outfield and maybe Brice Matthews plays a little bit at second base as well. But that's the first thing not even just with Brice Matthews, with any redraft prospect that comes up, it's what is that path to playing time? Are they at least going to have a chance? So that's what I'm looking at these next 3 days to see where Matthews hits in that lineup and where he plays, how often he plays. And then, the second big question is, you brought it up, like super toolsy, but what is that 30% strikeout rate? What does that translate over to the majors? I don't want to poo-poo certain prospects just because they have a 30% K rate. The 30% K rate in the majors, you can live with that if you've got the tools of someone like Brice Matthews. But if that 30% K rate in AAA goes to 35, 40, kind of the first time that he starts seeing major league pitching, then it's a problem. So I'm interested in Brice Matthews just for the power speed. Certainly will be upping bids in Fab this weekend if I see him starting each of these next 3 games.
Yeah, I think the skills in terms of swing and miss are probably similar to Colson Montgomery, who the White Sox recently promoted. The big difference is, at least if Matthews can keep the K rate in check well enough to keep his job, stolen bases to fall back on are there. Whereas Colson Montgomery, I don't think brings that. But the difference, I think, on the other side is Colson Montgomery has a much safer playing time floor. So two kind of high variance middle infielders to think about as fab runs happen here in just a couple of days. I was just glancing at the leaderboard at AAA right now. Guys who are striking out 30% of the time at that level, qualified hitters anyway. Jorge Alfaro, who's now 32. So yeah, we are really getting old. Bobby Dahlbeck, who's 30 now, 33% of the time. Colson Montgomery, who I just mentioned. Carson Williams, 35.3%. That's brutal. Milan Tolentino in the Guardian system, Edwin Rios. I mean, so there's a mix of some older guys that are clearly never coming up, but the younger guys, the early 20s guys in that list, the trio of those guys, and Everson Pereira, all kind of in that space where it's really, really difficult to take that and assume you're going to get even the exact same result once you bump up to face big league pitching. So probably a 15-team league or deeper for redraft purposes as far as the leagues where you're taking a shot on Matthews.
Agreed. I don't think I'd go there in 12 just because you probably have better alternatives that are safer in 12 teamers. So yeah, I'm bidding on him in my 15s. Might be looking at him in mixed labor, which is a 15 teamer, but probably not in 12s.
Yeah, probably a lighter bid too, even though the tools are really interesting for Brice Matthews. I did see a few notes that are kind of all like rehab related on the pitching front. So Hunter Greene, we mentioned him earlier in the week, had an MRI in his groin, showed no structural damage. He's returned to the Reds spring complex in Arizona. And in the words of Terry Francona, Greene has no roadmap for his current recovery. I bring this up only to ask you, in leagues where you don't have IL spots, are you trying your absolute hardest to continue holding him? Or are you actually at the point now where you would actually drop Greene, knowing that he's probably going to need at least a rehab start or two, even if he's able to build up in side sessions, given some of the uncertainty right now around that timetable?
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, like the no structural damage type of thing. Is like, look, that's probably good, but also they can't really explain why nothing's getting better, right? So it's like, what's kind of going on here? I think one of the beauties of the All-Star break is it kind of gives us a week or two to kind of pause, and especially for rehabbers like Hunter Greene, I think you have to hold out as long as you can, and maybe let's see what happens in not this fab period, but the next fab period, like your July 20th, and see where he's at. I think you need to do everything you can to hold on to Hunter Greene. I mean, he was just so good before the injury. I'm skeptical that he can come back and be what he was before then, because it hasn't only been groin. There's been back problems in there too. Like I don't know if it's just something deeper, more connected there, but it's the type of talent you try and hold on as long as you possibly can and just hope for the best. I think the other scenario here at play too, a lot depends on what Cincinnati does as a team, right? They're kind of trying to hang on in the NL wildcard. I believe they're 3 games back of the last NL wildcard spot as we record here on Friday. Does that affect things? If Cincinnati starts to fall back, it's like, what reason do we have to push Hunter Greene, especially if we can't locate or pinpoint what's actually going on with him? So a lot of things at play, but try and hold on as long as you can, just because the talent's absolutely elite.
That's what I've been trying to do, and I was doing the same with Tyler Glasnow in leagues too. Yep. I feel like Greene is showing per inning skills on that kind of level right now, where it's so hard to replace those innings. It's almost easier to just play short for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or even 8 weeks in some of these cases. That might be one of the holes in my game, being a little too patient in the non-IL leagues with players like this. But I think you're right. Take another week's worth of information, especially since we only have 3 games next week. It's a short week anyway, so you can manage the short week, maybe get another rehab update. Maybe he'll start throwing again, and we'll have a better sense of when he's actually going to come back, but not the kind of update you're hoping for on Hunter Greene up at this point. I saw Cole Ragans got transferred to the 60-day IL. I don't think that necessarily changes the timetable much because they were already looking at early August for him. It just sort of makes that official. Is that far enough away, 3+ weeks out, where you would think about possibly cutting Ragans in a similar scenario? Because I think innings quality-wise, even though the results weren't there this season, I would put Greene and Ragans in a similar tier in terms of my expectations going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cole Ragans was a pretty much consensus top 10 starting pitcher by ADP entering the season. And so, yeah, those guys don't grow on trees. So similar type of situation with Ragans as with Greene. The thing I like about with Ragans is he's starting to ramp up his throwing program again, and it was a shoulder injury. So I think you'll actually have information on Cole Ragans as opposed to just with Hunter Greene. We're kind of in a holding pattern. We'll actually get to see what Cole Ragans, how he starts feeling after he starts ramping up. And if there are any setbacks there, I think you can probably drop. But if things progress as usual, like at least Ragans is on the path to recovery. So, and then the other thing to watch out, similar to what I said with the Reds, that the Orioles are also in a similar predicament, right, in their playoff hunt. They're 3.5 back of the AL wild card. So they could be in a similar type situation where if the Royals start to fall back a little bit, then what incentive do they have to push Cole Ragans back? But it's good that the throwing program's ramping back up. Monitor those updates as you can over the next week or two and adjust from there. But I think as long as Cole Ragans stays on track and there are no setbacks, that's, I think, an easy hold, because he can be, even though, like you said, DVR, the early results this season weren't that great. I believe he does have the skills of a top 10 pitcher.
I looked at the Sierra versus ERA underperformers, and Ragans was among the biggest underperformers prior to landing on the IL for this stint. So I'd see him as an easy rebound candidate so long as all the stuff is still there and he's actually healthy once he gets activated. We do have some good news on Blake Snell, not really available anywhere. He's still 95% rostered in CBS leagues. He's not available in any NFBC leagues I looked at least none of my leagues, but 2 innings, 31 pitches in his rehab start on Thursday. That puts him on track for return, maybe right around the deadline, end of July, possibly the early part of August. So the Dodgers rotation, slowly but surely, getting the risky injury pieces back into place here throughout the second half of the season. I don't know if there's anything actionable to really say here, but I think it leads into some questions we'll have later in the show, focusing on Emmet Sheehan and like how his role is going to evolve. It's one more guy that's about to get in the way of a guy like Sheehan, with Blake Snell now making some progress. Let's move on to a few other waiver questions here. Samuel Basallo. Why is he not up right now? I mean, this feels like extreme service time manipulation because they've had so many catcher injuries. And I guess the people that are worrying about the extra year of control on Samuel Basallo are saying, well, the Orioles are low probability to go to the playoffs. They're 8 below 500. They're 4.4% chance of playing in the postseason this year. And I would take a little more of the keeper league mentality you described earlier, where it's like, it's really not great to throw away a season. And the bat is obviously ready. And I read a story in the Baltimore Banner recently about the defense being good. Like it's still, for any catcher as young as Basallo, it's not perfect, but I mean, is it worth stashing Samuel Basallo in fantasy leagues, thinking about the possibility of maybe having him up in August? Because if they're not bringing up with all these injuries, they must be waiting at least until they can call him up and preserve his chances of being Rookie of the Year eligible for 2026.
I think that if you're Baltimore, I think that's the move you're making. And I think it actually makes sense. I mean, we as fans, as fantasy players, we'd love to see Basallo up because he is, as soon as possible, because he is absolutely destroying AAA. The guy's a 17% barrel rate in AAA this year, 150 WRC plus, like good strikeout rate. Like everything on the hitting side is absolutely there for Basallo. But I see that exact scenario playing out where like maybe sometime late August, September, you're going to get just enough plate appearances, enough service time for Basallo to be rookie eligible in 2026. So like if that's the case, I don't think Basallo's worth stashing in most non-IL leagues right now, just because I don't know if you're going to get enough playing time, and you're probably stashing for a month and a half at this point. But if we're talking maybe 3-4 weeks from now, the writing's on the wall, you can do that. The other thing, Adley Rutschman may be coming back like maybe end of the month, early August type of deal. So I think the Orioles are just kind of playing this as a bridge from Jacob Stallings and Alex Jackson over to Adley Rutschman, because what do the Orioles have to really play for? I think they're fine taking that, making that bridge to get Adley back. And then maybe Basallo just comes up in September, gets some reps at catching. I mean, the Orioles have other guys who they're rumored to be traded. And it makes sense for the Orioles to sell off other pieces, perhaps Ramon Laureano, Ryan O'Hearn. That could open up some DH spots for Basallo to even get in there and get some reps, even if he doesn't catch behind Adley in September. So long story short, I think an impact bat, absolutely. I just don't know if you're going to get enough playing time that's worth stashing right now, but talk to me in maybe a month. And I think Basallo is probably worth it if you're just stashing him for a couple weeks at that point.
Yeah, I mean, just absurd power for a 20-year-old AAA. He's going to turn 21 in the middle of August. So if I had to guess when that debut is, it's probably after his birthday. His 21st birthday is August 13th. It's probably after August 13th. I don't know if I can get away with holding him in a non-IL league, even though I think the day he comes up, he's played enough first base and DH this year in the minors. I know last year is because of an injury. I think if Ryan O'Hearn gets moved as we all expect at the trade deadline, there is easily a configuration in the everyday lineup where Adley Rutschman and Samuel Basallo coexist. It's not let's worry about playing time. It's not even as complicated as the playing time situation was for Drake Baldwin earlier this year. So there's a ton to like here, but we're still a little too early in most redraft leagues to try and pull off that maneuver. I mentioned Emmet Sheehan a little bit earlier, and there are some leagues out there where you're looking at Cam Schlittler, you're looking at Emmet Sheehan, and you're looking at two guys on good teams who bring intriguing skills to the table, but have pretty uncertain holds on their roles. Could be stop-start, could be up and down, just based on factors that are really out of their own control. So who would you rather have for the rest of this season between Schlittler and Sheehan?
I've got him pretty close, and I'd probably bid about the same on both of them. Just hope I end up with one, because I like both of them. I'd probably, if I had to pick one and prioritize, I'd probably go Schlittler. I just really like the combination of whiff, strikeouts, and ground balls with a decent walk rate that we've seen in the minors from him this season. And I mean, there is something to be said. He currently has a rotation spot, right, with the Yankees. Again, I know Sheehan probably will, or at some version of a rotation spot, but I think Schlittler for now is the move. The other problem is maybe he's more expensive in FAB, because he did look pretty good against the Mariners in his debut with the 7 strikeouts. Look pretty nasty with some of his stuff, and he's got the velo that lights up the guns and all that thing. But I'd lean Schlittler. I know that Luis Hill comes back at some point, and maybe there's not room for Schlittler, but I think if Cam Schlittler can just outpitch Marcus Stroman, who might be hurt anyway, he just came back from a knee injury, and I was watching the Mariners game on Thursday. Stroman tried to cover first base, and the trainer came out to look at his leg. So I don't know if Stroman's even healthy. So I'm not even that worried too much about Cam Schlittler's rotation spot. If he pitches well, I think he stays. So I'd give a slight lean of Schlittler over Emmet Sheehan.
Yeah, I think you can be, even with the uncertainty, you can be a little more aggressive than your initial instincts bid-wise, because the payoff could be a big one. And I think innings-wise, too. Yeah. Schlittler shouldn't run into any sort of trouble. He got to 120 and 2/3 last year across 3 minor league stops. I think he's at 82 combined innings from his 2 stops in the minors this year, plus his debut. So if you're assuming 150, 160, he's got plenty of buffer throughout the second half. It wouldn't be a very early shutdown if he was even shut down at all. So I'm with you as far as those two, especially in the short term. Longer term, too, I think the way Schlittler does it, there's a higher ceiling in that approach. Both organizations do really well developing pitchers, so I don't know if there's necessarily an edge in that regard. But then I wanted to kind of pull back and think about leagues like the XFL and different long-term formats like Ottoneu. And, what do you think long-term about stashes right now? Who's on your radar? Because some of these guys are rostered and held all the time, but what are you seeking out? Who kind of jumps off the page right now when you're looking at the waiver wire as someone you could get onto your roster now and get some significant value from later?
Yeah, I think in general, the way I look at a question like that is I'd like to, at least, even though it's keeper leagues, I'd like to speculate on somebody who I think is actually going to be up in the majors this year, so we can kind of get that clock going and see what they look like against major league hitting. And the trade deadline's a great time to start looking at that kind of stuff, where you can kind of look at, I wrote an article at Baseball HQ this past week, basically taking the top 40. MLB Trade Rumors does this. They do a top 40 most likely to be traded list. I mean, they're kind of all over different sites and that sort of thing, but you can kind of take that and take a look at each roster. Who's going to fill in I don't really care where these guys get traded to, but who's going to fill in behind them. And so, on the MLB trade rumors list, like there were a couple starters in Oakland, Luis Severino, Jeffrey Springs, who might be on the block as just rotation depth for a contender. Luis Morales is one who I wrote up at Baseball HQ, who really good stuff, a 29% strikeout rate in the minors this year. If Springs, Severino are not in the rotation for the last 2 months of the season in Sacramento, I think Luis Morales could be someone who we had as the number 3 athletics prospect entering the season at Baseball HQ. Some walk issues, but to kind of your point earlier with ABS and everything in the minors, it's tough to really get a gauge for how that translates over, but the raw stuff looks really good for Luis Morales. So I'd go with him. I'm interested in him. And then there's 2 other guys I'll just kind of quickly mention, 2 pedigree guys who have kind of struggled this year, but I'm still interested in long-term. Their stock may be down in keeper leagues, so that's why I'm mentioning them. But Cade Cavalli and Thomas Harrington, I could see the Pirates trading off pieces of their rotation, creating that spot. I know we all talk about Bubba Chandler when he's going to, whatever, he's going to get called up. But I think Thomas Harrington, the former first-round pick, like pretty good scouting reports, a down year this year, but I think he's going to get a cup of coffee in the majors at the end of the season. And then Cade Cavalli as well, whose just career has been derailed by injury, not pitching that great in AAA either. But I think if the Nationals move some of their rotation pieces out, Cade Cavalli, for at least as long as the Nationals want to throw him, will at least get a look later this season.
Yeah, that's a good call. Cade Cavalli, kind of a forgotten guy. It's been several years since we've seen him in the big leagues. That debut came back in 2022. Yeah. I like that Luis Morales call, and I hate to do it, but I got to give the A's credit. Well, there's a difference between John Fisher ownership and hardworking people building a good roster for John Fisher. So I don't have any ill will at all towards the front office there. They've been together for a long time, and there was a point about 2 years ago where I looked at that front office and I thought, wow. Have they lost something? Because usually they would do well in trade. They'd find a lot of long-term value and they would trade a star veteran away. And it just kind of felt like they had generally missed in the trades that sent, Matt Chapman and Matt Donaldson and Sean Murphy away. Like for as talented as those guys were, they just didn't get back as much as you would have thought. But they've replenished in part by having some early draft picks and also guys like Morales, right? I mean, they've got a lot of success stories. Jack Perkins is the guy that I thought kind of fit the description here too, for the exact same reasons. I mean, Luis Severino has not been shy at all about how much he is not enjoying his time in Sacramento and pitching in a minor league park. And I totally understand it. And, for those people out there like, well, he signed there as a free agent. It's like, that's true. He just underestimated how bad it was going to be, I guess, as far as the heat and the mound conditions and all these things he's been upset about. But Jack Perkins is one of those guys that cruised through the upper levels of the minor leagues. The only thing that gives me pause just looking at some of the numbers from the model is an 83 location plus. It is very, very difficult to find successful starting pitchers that grade that poorly in the location plus model. I think the rebuttal I have to it as well, it's 9 1/3 innings in the big leagues. So, maybe with more reps, we'll see a better number. And he was so good on his way up to the big leagues. K rates above 30% during his time at AA last year, did the same thing at AAA last year. Didn't really have any home run problems, so you can kind of more easily forgive some of the double-digit walk rates you've seen along the way. And I do think the stuff is really good. It's good, very good slider, good changeup, and changeups usually get dinged in the model, and his is actually really good. It's least thrown pitch, but might be a good weapon for him. Fastball doesn't look like it's bad. So I do think, aside from the longer term multi-year park concerns that come from pitchers in Sacramento, I actually think Perkins and Morales might be the kinds of guys that are a skill tier or 2 above the likes of Springs and Severino. They have a much better chance of actually getting decent results despite the home park than some of those veterans do. So I'm not going to let that completely steer me away from some of these guys that are breaking through in that system. And I know he's in the bullpen right now, but they just sent Mitch Spence down. So I think there's clearly some turnover in those roles. And a lot of times, if you're going to flip the script, move someone out of the bullpen, give him a chance to start, you give him that audition maybe in September. So it might not take that long for Perkins to get that look at the big league level.
Absolutely. I like that call. And they've kept Perkins on even though it's been out of the bullpen, they've kept him on a regular schedule. So he's kind of ready to go if and when that rotation spot does open. So I think that's key as well. He's not just throwing, he's throwing multi-innings, but he's not going back-to-back days or anything like that. He's basically, getting a normal starter's rest in between outings.
The other guy I want to ask you about is Aaron Ashby. Am I just being a Brewers homer, still believing there's a world in which Aaron Ashby could just be a starter in 2026, be that for the Brewers or someone else? I mean, we know they have no problem churning and burning in the bullpen. So, Trevor McGill might be their closer for the rest of this season and maybe into a postseason run, but could easily be someone else's closer on opening day 2026. This is a pure baseball HQ draft skills, not roles sort of call. I just see two directions in which this could actually work. It just has to be a deeper league for that to be a good use of a roster spot.
It's funny, man. So when you asked me to be a co-manager for XFL 2-3 years ago, I think you had that exact same pitch for Aaron Ashby, because I think he was on our team and we were wondering, like, should we keep him or not? And so you have been an Aaron Ashby guy for quite some time. I won't hold that against you. I won't call you a homer for it. But this is the type of profile, absolutely the type of profile, that if you're going to move from, given the injury history that we've had with Aaron Ashby, if you're going to move from rotation to bullpen, like, this is almost like what you would make. This is the type of pitcher you would make to make that transition and be a potentially dominant reliever. Now, a couple things have to happen to that, right? Like you said, Aaron Ashby either has to get moved to a club that would let him ascend to the ninth, or, if McGill gets out of the way in Milwaukee, that could work. I don't know if it costs you to stash in Aaron Ashby. I probably wouldn't go there unless we get a little bit more clarity, a little bit of a clearer path to the ninth. But certainly from a skill standpoint, the guy's still 27, like, not that old. So you've been talking him up since he was a teenager. So
I mean, he broke badly once. That was what went wrong at first in the XFL. I think the way they use Ashby, more multi-inning than one-inning stints, points to a future in which they see him more as a starter. And you think about the way they've cobbled together with so many veterans and unheralded, like, non-prospects, the Tobias Myerson, the Chad Patrick types the last couple of years. Like, eventually you could go through an offseason where you take guys like Ashby and say, actually, he's in our starting five. Like, this makes us better. We think Peralta and Mizorowski and Ashby is maybe our best trio that we could put together atop the rotation. Like, I could definitely see that. I mean, he's had success actually in both roles. The success as a starter is very limited. I would say it's more like skills. It's more like a Sierra situation and skills that jump off the page than it is actual results. That's why he's in the bullpen right now. But man, that Eno's model has 4 above average pitches for Ashby.
It's
out of
crazy.
10,
yeah.
And 97 location plus to go along with that. I mean, if you just blind looked at that, you'd be like, who is that? Is that guy winning the Cy Young? Is that Scooble? Like, which pitcher is that? I mean, it's just an absurd arsenal that he has to work with. And yeah, sure, it's grading out more favorably in 2 and 3 inning stints, but there's room to lose something and still be really good.
Agreed. Yep, absolutely.
All right, so everybody on the pod, everyone listening is going to have Aaron Ashby stashed away, and we're all going to wait forever for those shares to really pay off. But it's still skills that I can't pass on at this point. Want to ask you the same question on the hitter side. Any hitters that you like right now? Maybe they're semi-regulars or they're knocking on the door at AAA. A lot of paths. We know with the trade deadline, opportunities are going to open up very quickly here in the next few weeks. So who are you trying to get onto your roster now in long-term formats?
So I think for me, and I know Keeper Dynasty folks, don't roll your eyes too hard at this, but like the first name I'll throw out there is more of just a redraft play. I do think Chase DeLauder, as long as he can stay healthy, is going to be up at some point in the second half with Cleveland, and I think is stash worthy in redraft leagues, obviously widely rostered in Keeper and Dynasty. Chase DeLauder is some of the best barrel and strikeout rate combinations in all of AAA. He's got a 190 WRC plus. It's never been a problem with skills with Chase DeLauder. It's always been injuries. So if he can stay healthy, I think they are absolutely sellers at the deadline. I think they're going to want to see it. May be a similar situation with Samuel Basallo, where they keep that rookie eligibility for 2026 because the dude has an absolute shot at winning Rookie of the Year next season. But on redraft leagues, I like DeLauder. For Keeper Dynasty, I'll throw a name out there that honestly I wasn't too familiar with, but looking at the scouting reports and seeing some of the skills in AAA, Jonathan Long for the Cubs at first base. I know he's a little bit blocked right now with Michael Busch having a career year at first in Chicago, but hitting 315, 13 home runs, excellent skills in AAA for Jonathan Long, somewhat of a unheralded, like he's on some prospect list, but he's certainly not a top tier guy. So I think if you're going like an under the radar type of late bloomer or someone who's just really picking things up in 2025, Jonathan Long to me looks really good in Chicago.
Yeah. And he's not old for the level or anything like that too. Right. He's got the difficult task of being a right-handed hitting first baseman.
Exactly.
That is the uphill battle, but you could easily see, I mean, the Cubs, they're going to make some additions to that roster, whether it's a splashy, Jacob deGrom fever dream that we've outlined on the pod before, or some things that are smaller. Jonathan Long is the kind of guy that gets added into a trade because the Cubs really like what they're getting from Michael Busch, and for good reason. And they probably can't afford to do anything more with Jonathan Long than send him up and down for a couple of years and just make him a small side platoon guy, or even just a straight up bench guy. Like, I don't know if he has a defensive versatility to even be that kind of player, but for a rebuilding team, and this is where I think the Marlins always come into the conversation. This seems like a profile that teams like Miami are going to take a chance on, because it could actually be 20 plus homers with good average and OBP numbers. It could be an actual middle of the order sort of player, at least for a short period of time during a rebuild.
Yep, absolutely.
They had 50% hard hit rate with a 20% K rate. That's
the numbers
really
jump
solid
off the page. You're almost rooting for a trade. And I think the Cubs know that they need to at least go for it right now. And Jonathan Long, I think, would be a great piece, because the Cubs don't need him. And like you said, some rebuilding team certainly could.
Yeah, and the DeLauder situation, it's just like Basallo now with the Guardians' recent skid. It's becoming harder for them to justify adding him to the fray now, even though he'd be very, very helpful to them. I think we'll see him in August, and he's just kind of up for good after that. I think DeLauder's another guy we had on the XFL team once upon a time, and I think DeLauder was part of the trade that got us Vlad Jr., so I think that was a DeLauder well spent.
Yeah, you drove the wheels on that one. That was a good move. But yes, not a huge shocker that we've rostered Chase DeLauder among several other injured guys on our XFL team.
Oh man,
it's been better this year, but man, we had it was I know
everybody.
No one likes to complain about injuries, but I've never seen a team so
everybody was getting hurt on that team for a couple of years. Thankfully, we've moved past it just a little bit. Couple other would you rathers and possible interesting targets for redraft leagues for you. I just saw this because they have similar roster rates on CBS. Who would you rather have for the rest of this season between Tyler Freeman and Colt Keith, two guys that have second base eligibility among other spots and would help fill a need at a position that has been just ugly for a lot of leagues out there? I mean, if you're in a 12-team league and you don't have a good second base eligible player, these are the types of guys you may be looking at. In some 12-team leagues, they're already rostered, stashed away, used, but there are some shallow leagues where they might actually still be out there.
Yeah, we're actually running a series of first half position reviews over at our Bubba and the Bloom podcast. We just go position by position, look at what the ADP was and what the Fangraphs player rater has them, doing for the first half of the season. And second base, man. So Brandon Lau is the number one second baseman, and which was surprising to me. I don't have a ton of Brandon Lau, but he was the number one second baseman in the first half, 52nd overall. So there are zero second baseman in the top 50 this year in fantasy, and it's not a deep position either. So Tyler Freeman and Colt Keith being able to provide, they are different profiles, even though it's similar roster rates. And I think that's something you need to consider. If you're looking for more batting average speed, I think Tyler Freeman's your guy. I think he's pretty much locked in at the top of the Rockies order, which is, especially streaming home weeks and that sort of thing, super valuable. I think the batting average floor is really strong with Tyler Freeman, and he's running like crazy. So I think that the batting average stolen bases with Tyler Freeman are there. So I'd probably take Freeman over Colt Keith in a vacuum, but certainly can't argue with what Colt Keith's doing, especially in the power department. If you need power, I'd go Keith. But I think straight up, I'd lean Freeman just because the plate appearance floor for Tyler Freeman leading off every day within that park is really attractive to me.
Yeah, the Tigers, I think, because they've got a little bit more depth, they could, if they want to, they can be a little more stingy with Colt Keith getting an everyday role. They could give him an 85% playing time share. I like the way he's turned things around over the last, 6 weeks or so. It was kind of a slow start. I think Colt Keith's among my most rostered players this year. I liked him in a lot of draft and hold leagues and 15-teamers because he started the year with second base eligibility. He was going to open the year at first. I thought, hey, middle corner, first guy off the bench at the very least, or just an easy piece to move around to get my best available bench bat in. I think that's going to work. And he hit so well coming through the minors. I just thought we'd see another step forward. Maybe we're finally starting to see that. Freeman also, I think, at one point rostered by the XFL team we keep mentioning. Getting to this level is it's kind of a better late than never sort of thing. And I hope the Rockies keep playing him a ton. I want to see where this OBP actually settles in. A 425 OBP through 51 games this year. Projections have him in the 350, 360 range. That's still really good. If he's doing that and he's running as frequently as he's been running, then he's probably going to steal another 12 to 15 bases as long as that everyday role or near everyday role holds up. So yeah, different skill sets for sure. And nice to see Freeman putting those pieces together after I tried to wait it out on many occasions during his time in Cleveland. Some other bats, though, that are out there this week. Ha-seongKim's back. I was surprised. He's only 23% rostered on CBS coming off of shoulder surgery. What do you think is causing that lag? Is it just the shortstop-only eligibility in some leagues that's keeping him off rosters?
Could be. I mean, even in NFBC formats and 12-teamers over on the NFBC, Ha-seongKim's 45% rostered. So it's not like that much higher on the NFBC. So I'm not really sure. I think maybe it was just the rehab crept up on everybody and wanted to see how Ha-seongKim looks, what the playing time looks like. So far, he has checked all those boxes for the Rays. He's playing shortstop pretty much every single day. I was worried like Taylor Walls would continue to keep playing. I know he's great defensively, but for fantasy, it's like I want to gouge my eyes out when I see Taylor Walls in the lineup every day. But Ha-seongKim already has a home run, already has a stolen base. So from an actual, you always wonder coming off shoulder and it's just one home run, like a couple game sample, but the power is at least there for Ha-seongKim to do it. And I think he can run. And it certainly seems like the playing time is going to be there at least most days for the Rays in a lineup that has been just absolutely fire this year. I think that's another big thing to take account. Like those hidden runs in RBI and Roto leagues for Ha-seongKim could be quite the boost. So I think definitely under rostered. I think Ha-seongKim should be pretty much widely rostered in 12 teamers and in 15s. Like absolutely.
I wonder if he's a sneaky player to trade for right now. I mean, in leagues where he's already rostered, keeper leagues, whatever. I just don't think it would take as much as it should to get him. And you think back to his last completely healthy season was 2023. He played 121 games a year ago. But that 2023 season, 17 homers, 38 for 47 as a base stealer. Did it with a 260 average. I mean, that's a really nice player. The other guys that have put up seasons like that in recent years probably cost you a lot more in trade than Kim does right now.
And he's still just 29 years old. It's not like this is someone on the downside of that aging curve. So absolutely. We forget about that. But yeah, like a year or two ago, Ha-seongKim, I want to say it was like a 6th or 7th round pick in 50 teamers coming off that big 2023 season. So this is someone who's actually done it before in the majors. So I agree. Kind of sneaking up on folks. Trade target for sure.
A's Max Muncy is kind of interesting to me. Look at this. I'm getting into the A's. It's terrible. I don't know why.
A lot of A's talk today. That's okay.
Yeah. I got the Rates and Barrels hat on. It's got the A's colors, so maybe that's where it's creeping in a little bit. But third base is probably Max Muncy's spot for the A's. Like he's playing short right now because Jacob Wilson's banged up. And I think with Max Muncy, I'm going to say an 80 WRC plus with a 31% K rate at your first, third of a season in the big leagues is actually okay. That's surviving. That's a level that's acceptable. It's also enough of a struggle where if the team has a veteran or another young player they want to get a look at instead, they can justify sending you down and people can't really complain about it. But 34.7% hard hit rate, what he did in the minors, both this year and last year, right around 40%. That's really solid. I don't think there's quite that much swing and miss long-term from him. We saw like low to mid 20s K rates at most of his upper level stops. I'm intrigued for sure by the A's Max Muncy. Where are you at on him, both short term and long term?
I'm actually a little bit more intrigued long term with Max Muncy, like for next season. Short term, I do wonder about the playing time a little bit with Miguel Andujar back. Started at third base on Thursday with Geloff, right, who just came back at second base. So I do worry that the everyday playing time in the short term for Max Muncy may not start to be there. The A's have shown the willingness to send him back down to AAA. They've already sent him back down and called him back up this season too. So I think for me, Muncy's a little bit more of a next year type of play. Get those reps in this season. Hopefully the K rate can go down to like the low 20s, given the other tools that Max Muncy provides in that park. But I certainly we just talked about Ha-seongKim. I don't think it's all that close between those two in the infield. I'd take Kim over Muncy the rest of the way.
I think Kim might be the best widely available position player in leagues right now, based on those CBS rates and the 12-team NFBC rate you threw out there. There might be other guys that are available in very few leagues that are better than Kim, but I just think as far as your best waiver target on the position player side goes, that's your guy right now. Romy Gonzalez, I talked a little bit about him in the interview with Niv Shah coming up a little later, but I think he's just playing a lot because they saw a bunch of lefties. And my only lingering intrigue with Romy Gonzalez is if he ends up on a different team after the trade deadline, he flashes the skills of a late bloomer to me. Hits the ball really hard. He's never had that chance. I don't know how he didn't get that chance with the White Sox. It just doesn't seem like the Red Sox are really going to turn him loose, especially if they're contending as more than a small side platoon guy that plays on the right side of their infield.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, you mentioned that with Romy Gonzalez. Like, I feel like he's been around forever, but only has 600 career plate appearances. Like, he's just always kind of been this like short side platoon guy who's never really gotten a chance. I think what you said, I think both things can be true. I think Romy Gonzalez can be kind of sneakily pretty good, but I also think like he does kind of mash lefties, and there was that long stretch of a ton of lefties that Boston was seeing. I also wonder with Yoshida coming back, I believe on Friday, I believe today, Alex Bregman coming back, like I know those aren't direct replacements, but it's just more bodies that the Red Sox have to cycle through. So I agree. I think Romy Gonzalez's best path to value in Boston is maybe getting traded. I also don't know what Boston's going to do though. Like they're all like Jaron Duran keeps getting rumored by being traded, but like Boston's, if the season ended today, they're right in the thick of the wild card race. I don't know if they're sellers or not. So it's tough for me to go too hard on Romy Gonzalez. I think you're paying for a really good window of production that you're probably not going to get again going forward, just because it was a big stretch of lefties. And I think now the playing time, just with more bodies in that rotation, is a little bit suspect.
AL only roster glue for me, but somebody that I'll be interested in if gets pushed off the roster by whatever mean, getting included in a trade, DFA, waiver claim, whatever. I don't know how it's going to happen, but keeping an eye on him nonetheless. But yeah, Yoshida and Bregman both being back make things a lot more difficult, and the pressure ends up being on Marcelo Meyer. I think that's the young guy that if he falters, that might be the path to a more prominent role. David Hamilton got sent down, if you're wondering how they made some of those roster pieces fit. Andrew Vaughn is the other name I want to throw at you. I mean, hit the moonshot off of Yoshinobu Yamamoto earlier this week in his first at bat as a Brewer. When we first talked about him earlier in the week, I said probably small side platoon with Jake Bauers until Rhys Hoskins comes back. And at the time, we didn't know how long Hoskins was going to be out. Hoskins is probably out 6 more weeks. So with that timetable, I think the Brewers are going to be tempted to try and get more of a look at Vaughn. Like, sure, against tough righties, he'll be on the bench and then come off the bench later in the game. But they know what Bauers is. Bauers is a good defender and probably more of a backup, come off the bench sort of player. Vaughn, if you think about path to free agency and getting him back for Aaron Savali, they have to decide if they want to actually tender him a contract for next year, because Hoskins is a free agent.
Yep.
Vaughn's projections were actually pretty good while he was struggling with the White Sox. So how are you handling that situation, given the uncertainty about the role and even the underperformance relative to those projections for the first several months of the season with the White Sox?
I think it's a great point. The Brewers need to make a call on Andrew Vaughn, and the only way to do that is to play him regularly and see what you have, especially when your alternative, at least for now, until Hoskins comes back against righties, is Bauer. So I've never been a huge Andrew Vaughn guy. Like, I think for fantasy, I personally think of him more like if you need a corner infield spot in a 15-teamer, I think Andrew Vaughn can go there. I mean, I know he was like a top 5 overall pick out of Cal some years back, but has never really, like, he's just been a 20 homer guy with decent batting average. Like, that plays. I just don't know if there's much of a ceiling above that. Like, and recently, the last year or so, the floor has kind of dropped out as well. So I just see Vaughn as honestly just like a depth piece in 15s. I don't think I'd go after him in 12 teamers unless you really need something. It is nice that the playing time is going to be there at least for the next 5-6 weeks until Hoskins is back, but I just don't see the ceiling here.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's more floor, more of a mid-range sort of outcome at this stage. But the thing that I'm wondering about too, the White Sox as an organization, I feel like their pitching development's been fine for the last several years, generally speaking. I don't know if they get great talent consistently in to work with, but I think Ethan Katz and that pitching group are generally regarded as at least average or better at what they do. I don't know if I can, off the top of my head, come up with a White Sox hitter that was developed that exceeded expectations. I mean, Tim Anderson was a first round pick, right? So yeah. Tim Anderson being Tim Anderson wasn't like a massive player development win. You think about the core of some of their more recent good teams, it was thriving in international free agency. I mean, Jose Abreu way back when, that was a great signing, international free agency. When Luis Robert was good, international free agency. Like, I can't put my finger on like whether or not this organization at any point in the last half decade, especially, was making hitters better. So a fresh start anywhere. This is, again, not Milwaukee homerism. Andrew Vaughn just being anywhere else is enough of a fresh start for me to think, okay, maybe he'll do the things that we thought he was going to do coming out of college with a different set of coaches, different teammates, different people in his ear around him every day. Even if I generally agree, it's like, it's not 30 to 35 home run upside, but it's just, hey, go hit 260 with a 330 OBP and pop 25 homers consistently. That's still a good player, even if it's not a superstar.
And some certainly be said to go from that White Sox environment to now be suddenly thrown into the thick of the postseason race. So that can help too. It's a good point on the White Sox though. Like maybe I'll bring up like former XFLer Miguel Vargas. I don't know if he counts, like, even that he is 25 now. So I don't know if that's a White Sox development thing, but at least that's somebody who has come over and had a better season with the White Sox than he did with the Dodgers. That's at least interesting to me, but you're right. Like that team, the past few years, that entire organization, just the development has not been there.
Yeah, it's been a little light, and I would give him credit for Vargas. I think I was reading some of the James Fegan stuff about the adjustments that Vargas made. It sounded like that was with the current coaching staff, which I have to look very carefully and see how many of those folks were hired for this season as part of their rebuild, and how many of them were carryovers from previous parts of the rebuild. But I'm looking at it right now. I've got the leaderboard. Oh, this is great. White Sox position players since 2010. This is just the full-on leaderboard of their best position players by WAR.
Let's get ready to get depressed here. Here we go.
Jose Abreu, international free agent, great signing. I mean, you smashed that. Tim Anderson, first-round pick, I think was probably as good as everybody thought he would be. Didn't exceed expectations overall, even if he had a better peak than some people might have projected. Good player, though. I mean, a good first-round pick. Alexi Ramirez, international free agent. Yohan Moncada, traded for, international free agent. Adam Eaton, a guy they traded for. I think Adam Eaton was kind of a finished product, like a slappy college guy. They didn't really change him. He kind of just was what he was when they got him. Does that seem like a fair assessment?
I'm on board with that, yeah.
Luis Robert, international free agent, and he's been not all over the place.
Not progressing. Started great, but yeah. Ugh.
A guy we keep wondering, why isn't he better? Right. Eloy Jimenez, traded for him, international free agent, though. Did they make Eloy Jimenez better? No. I don't think so. Who else is on this list? Alex Rios. How'd they get Alex Rios into the org? I can't even remember that far back off the top of my head. Alejandro De Aza, AJ Pierzynski. Okay, I think I've made my point here. Like this is not an organization that in its last like 15 years has been particularly good at improving hitters. Like I think we can say that with some confidence. And White Sox fans, if I'm wrong, please let me know in the Discord.
It's a tough track record, but I'm always down for just naming names. Just hearing some of those names I haven't heard in a while. Alexei Ramirez and Alex Rios. Like, let's go. Let's just sit around and name guys.
I would never have pulled Alejandro De Aza as a top 10 position player from the White Sox since 2010. Would not have got that one.
That's tough. That's tough.
Has been lost. The brain cells I have lost included remembering Alejandro De Aza's role with the White Sox. All right, one last question before we go, Ryan. This is a mailbag question from Lou Gleich, who I actually met in person at First Pitch Arizona last year. Sent this question through our Discord. With all the guys coming back from Tommy John surgery these days, how do we know whom to target? What can we learn from the track record of guys who've had Tommy John? Is there a certain type of pitcher who is more likely to succeed after Tommy John, and what age does role play? So boiling that down, like if you do take chances on guys coming off of TJ, what are you looking for? What gives you reason to be more optimistic post-surgery?
I mean, for me, the type of pitcher, because I mean, I believe this, but the truism out there that the kind of command is the last thing to come back once, even if the velocity looks good and that sort of thing. I think you need someone with dominance who doesn't get by on command, where I think of like a Sandy Alcantara who has been better lately, but this may be proving into my point where like it was just a complete disaster in the first couple of months of the season, where Sandy absolutely relied, and he had the elite velocity, but he absolutely relied on command. It wasn't overpowering strikeout rates and whiffs and all that sort of thing. And I think if the command is even just a touch off for some of those guys, that first year back tends to be a little bit rougher. And the Spencer Strider is kind of the other flip side of that, where the whiffs and the strikeouts are just immense. He can kind of get by if the command is a little bit off. We just saw on Thursday, like 3 walks, 11 strikeouts for Spencer Strider. Like, I think the stuff is good enough anyway that he can get by with a few walks a game. Whereas some of these other guys, these Sandys, you're not able to. So that's for me, that's where I kind of draw the line, is if they do rely more on command, that first year back off of TJ could be rough. Flip side of that, the second year, I think, is a decent buying opportunity on the way back. Like, I'll be very interested to see what Sandy Alcantara's ADP entering 2026 will be. So that's kind of how I view some of those Tommy John returners. Age-wise, I don't know. I have not seen studies, have not seen the numbers on age as a factor with TJ recovery, but there have certainly been names I can list who have had late career TJ who have come back and still been fine. So I'm not sure if that matters as much to me.
Yeah, I think the way I would expect it to be, and again, this hopefully could be supported by some data, but I would expect that if you're older and you've got either a deeper pitch mix or better command, you can get back with slightly lesser stuff. And that's one way to survive the Tommy John surgery. It's just, well, I lost 5 or 10% of the stuff I had, but all the command came back, and I got a deep arsenal, and I know how to sequence and how to do all that stuff. So I can get mostly back to that pre Tommy John level. And at the other end, like the benefit of being younger, I think your body tends to recover from surgery and all this stuff when you're younger. But I also think you can lose a little more stuff when you're younger and still have enough to get past the command that you are either still developing or are still trying to get back post-surgery. So it's kind of like you'd have to like put it on a big chart and be like, okay, this combination of things works for these guys that are younger. This combination of things works for the older guys. If you're kind of in the middle and you don't have any of these things, it might be harder to get back, right? Like it's a constantly moving target. I haven't seen a good enough study yet to hone in on one bucket. But the one other thing I do always try to look for, I try before I stash someone to see them get back. I try to time it where they're going to pitch before I have to use them. So what I mean by that is in a keeper league, for instance, I would rather see a Kyle Bradish pitch at the end of this season before deciding if I'm going to hold him going into 2026 than hold on to someone who will not return before the end of this season. Yeah. And we have to kind of go through that Sandy progression of, all right, spring training might be the first look, or even some rehab starts after the season begins is the first look. I think it's always helpful if you can kind of pick and choose who you're stashing to get some major league innings before you have to make a keeper decision.
Right. Which I think that's a really good point. I think that goes into the kind of give it, take your lumps almost, so to speak, to get that command back before you have to make that call. Sandy was a weird one last year because, I mean, the word out of Miami was like, timeline wise, he could have pitched at the end of last season, but he didn't. So it's like, do you take the team at their word and that sort of thing? So that's a really good point. You at least want to get maybe a few reps at the end of the season. I almost think of like a Drew Rasmussen at the end of last year, even though it was out of the bullpen, he at least started to get those reps. And then, obviously it's had a big year this season, at least till the innings slow down. So great question. That's a lot to consider. That could be a whole panel at First Pitch Arizona, honestly, with just different types of pitchers, different ages and timelines and that sort of thing.
Honestly, yeah, I just wanted to get it on here because it's a fun thing to start thinking about. And we're at the point in the year where we do have some of those second half returners coming back soon. So more on this at some point in the future, Lou, be that at First Pitch Arizona or otherwise. And I think of Jacob deGrom last year, just getting back proof of concept. Wasn't all the way back to being deGrom, but we saw him for like 10 innings. That gave me a lot more confidence about him not being in rehab mode through the entire winter. He was in preparation mode instead. So I ended up with a good bit of deGrom this year, and so far it's been good. It doesn't always work. Example of that not working, Noah Syndergaard, 2021. That was the year he came back, made a couple of relief appearances. He just wasn't the same guy anymore. Like it just didn't work for him post-TJ. The results in 2022 weren't awful, but you could tell he wasn't Thor anymore. He was just, unfortunately, a post-surgery pitcher that had significantly reduced stuff. All right, Ryan, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for the whole hour. Appreciate all your time and your insight. Let our listeners, again, know where they can find your work and where they can hear you.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate it, Derek. Always a pleasure to chat with you. My podcast is Bubba and the Bloom podcast. We do a Fab preview that comes out every Friday and then do a Bloom Boards type of episode on Wednesdays every week, writing over at Baseball HQ. And you can physically find me in Mesa, Arizona on November 6th at a golf course and then at First Pitch Arizona. So hope to see as many of you all out there as possible. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah, jump in. BaseballHQ.com is where you go to get registered. That early bird discount running for 2 more weeks through July 25th. So sign up now, save money on that conference fee. Look into those flight and hotel plans. There's also a room block listed on there too. Correct. At the hotel where the conference is. So be sure to jump in on that room block rate as well. Well, now it's our Friday tradition. It's become a Friday tradition this season. We are joined by our senior hot dog correspondent, Niv Shah. What an amazing hot dog on tap. I'm excited for this one. We're going to talk baseball first. But Niv, how's it going for you on this Friday?
Pretty good, man. How are you doing?
Doing really well and staying out of the heat. Glad it's finally, we're past the worst of the worst heat, I think, in the upper Midwest. So good. I can start to enjoy summer again. Fingers crossed. That's where I'm at right now. I want to get to the park again soon. All these hot dog segments are just pushing me to go get the real thing because you can make them at home. You can grill it broad at home. It's just not the same.
Not the same. Having it not the same
at the ballpark. No. So a lot going on this week. We saw the debut of Cam Schlittler for the Yankees against the Mariners, and he's among the most added players on Ottoneu this week. This one makes sense, probably in the similar vein to Didier Fuentes, who we talked about maybe 2 weeks ago now. I know Fuentes has since been demoted, but I think the short and long-term needs for the Yankees are clear enough, and the skills for Schlittler, I think, are good enough where even if it's not a steady, he's a starter here on out for them as they get more guys healthy, in this format, with the larger rosters especially, I could see him being a somewhat pricey in-season ad because the stuff is really good.
There's also the just very basic factor that Clark Schmidt is getting cut everywhere. The injury just frees up a roster spot right away. Usually the stashes, 60 IL guys don't take up a roster spot, so you are able to stash them, but you really don't want to be stashing them even in Ottoneu at their full price. You want to stash them when they come a little lower later in the year. So Clark Schmidt getting cut everywhere, everyone's sort of like, well, I have this roster spot, and there's a 1-to-1 fit. And right? Schlittler is a very exciting arm, right? Like the stuff plus metrics, it's different than other guys that pop up at this part of the year. A lot of times you don't get guys that are, we've talked about it many times. You're trying to fill those innings, just get any arm that's alive right now. Getting an arm with upside is exciting. And I think you guys were talking a little bit about like what kind of pitch mix he needs to add to maybe sustain it or maybe even take another step up. That's pretty exciting stuff to be in July and be able to say that about a pitcher that, is being auctioned in 40 plus leagues and was added in 70 leagues or 70% of leagues in the last week. Like that, you usually don't get arms that are exciting to talk about in that way.
Yeah, I think the way the rules are structured right now in Major League Baseball, we have the early promotions for the sake of trying to,
get the rookie of the year.
At or near the top of the rookie of the year to get the extra draft pick. And then you have the later promotions, a lot of times designed to preserve rookie of the year eligibility for the following season. So this part of the calendar, especially July, is really kind of a prospect dead zone, I would say.
That's a really good point.
It's really like extreme needs that are going to lead an organization to bring up a high-end guy. And Schlittler's a very good prospect. He's probably a notch below what you'd call like an elite sort of prospect. So that's more of what we need right now. And we're not worried about service time because he might go up and down a couple of times anyway, right? He might make 2 or 3 starts. Veterans come back. He gets optioned down. And he comes back in September and makes a couple of more starts, and it ends up being the same as if they'd called him up in mid-August in terms of number of days he's on the roster. So all that is to say, like, I do think Ottoneu is probably the best format for a player like this, where there is some short-term role volatility because you can justify the stash pretty easily. I think the ceiling is very high, even though we think there may be a need to add one more pitch to be a little more effective against lefties. He still has a really good baseline set of skills. You go up there with a fastball that averages 97.9 in your debut and a slider at 91.9. Those 2 pitches alone, just as your starter kit, would be great. Throws a curveball almost 10% of the time as well. And we know the Yankees pitching program is really solid. Like all those things are good. So what does a bid typically, a winning bid in a good competitive league, typically look like for a player like this? Is it usually $5-7?
Yeah, I think that's close to right. I think one thing I wanted to mention when you mentioned elite prospects versus someone more like Cam, elite prospects are already gone. They're off the board. They're just not available to you in most of your leagues in Ottoneu. So that's another reason why this guy is like a very exciting, like, again, it's a very exciting moment. He has a great debut. And again, like I said, 70% of leagues added him in the last week, like in the last 8 days. I'm looking at the averages right now, and they're sitting around $3. But that a lot of that is before the start on Wednesday. And a bunch of auctions are going to end now-ish that I think are going to go push him closer to the $5 or $6 range of those set of auctions. So you'll see an average of like 4, but the last 10 will be something like 6. And you'll be like, oh, okay, like I see that. And that I am validated by that. I just looked at the last 10 and the median is $6. So he's definitely, like, the stock is going this way. You don't want to be bidding $10. You don't want to be bidding, this is my third starter money, because you're going to, because of the volatility you mentioned, basically. But he's a guy that next year could be your third starter, and that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, the key will be price in that case, but I think a lot can still change between now and the start of next season, like what we saw in the debut overall from Cam Schlittler. The other name that you mentioned is being heavily auctioned, Romy Gonzalez.
Yeah.
And Ryan Bloomfield and I are talking about how crowded this depth chart has become with the return of Masataka Yoshida. Alex Bregman's going to be back this weekend as well. So there's going to be a crunch for playing time. And my theory on Romy Gonzalez, he's the
odd man out, right?
Yeah, he's just kind of the extra guy there. But the bigger question would be, do you think there's a chance he's just one of those late 20s pop-up guys because he does a lot of things well. He hits the ball hard. He can play a few spots defensively. He's never really had a prolonged opportunity in the big leagues. It just sort of feels like he's in the wrong organization to be much more than a temporary starter or a small side platoon guy. And if he's a small side platoon guy, I know because of the daily adjustments to your lineup you can make in Ottoneu, like that can still work. But I guess I'm just wondering if you see some of the long-term glimmers of upside that I see. I mean, 61.7% hard hit rate is just absurd. It's 151 plate appearances this year. It's 51.4% for his big league career, which is now comprised of snippets of basically 5 big league seasons now. It's just like someone should give him a chance. I just don't know if the Red Sox will.
The Red Sox, sort of famously have an infield problem. Like they aren't the right fit. So he does feel like he'll be the odd man out. And I think the bids kind of reflect that. While he is popping up a lot, his roster percentage is going to be around 50% across all of Ottoneu at the end of this weekend. It's not everyone is committing to him. His average salary is sitting around $2.50. This is different than what we were just talking about with Cam Schlittler. People are pricing in that, he's popping right now. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, but don't think that this is a commitment that is going to last much more than, the dog days of August and September when he may not have regular plate appearances anymore. There's always a chance, he gets traded or there's some sort of player movement. I think you're right in saying that another org would be really interested in him as a throw-in, but I also think, what does that trade look like? You're not centering a trade around Romy Gonzalez in 2025. So, like, how does another org get their hands on him? It's kind of an interesting problem.
Yeah, I think it'd just be we don't have enough space on the roster for all the guys we want to keep anyway, and you can take him back and actually play him. It's that sort of inclusion in a trade. I mean, the Red Sox are 5 over 500 entering play on Friday. They're back into a playoff position, so it would be so strange to see them aggressively buying in the next 2 to 3 weeks after making the Rafael Devers trade earlier this season. But at the same time, like, you're the Red Sox, you have a good core. And what it looks like for now is that Gonzalez will share second base with Marcelo Meyer now that Alex Bregman is back. So you could, if you think Marcelo Meyer can slump his way back to AAA for a little while, that's probably your best path to Romy getting that opportunity. But even if they made that move, David Hamilton could come back up from AAA and he'd still be part of the equation. So I have a really hard time seeing how they get all the way to full playing time for Romy Gonzalez in Boston, but I would flag him as a possible late bloomer if the right opportunity comes along. I mentioned the lull in prospects. We have the draft coming up this weekend. So for folks who are new to the Ottoneu platform, how are players drafted in the current year's draft handled?
So Ottoneu is unique on this one. It's basically me here, and I'm really comfortable adding players. Like, we have a good community that's on top of when players sign. Players do have to officially sign, agree to terms. Turns out isn't enough. Kumar Rocker agreed to terms with the Mets. So we have a perfect example of how that can fall apart. But once a player has signed, acknowledged it, reported to the minors or whatever, I will add them to the player pool and they will be there. And often that is the first and last time you'll get a chance to get your hands on the top 5 guys in the draft class, the top 10, 15 guys out of it. Like that's the last time Paul Skeens went up for auction was when he signed. The last time that those guys that really hit Ellie or whatever, it's like very early on, especially when they're like, even like a guy like Dylan Cruz, when they have like the pedigree, they're going for $6, $7, $8 right away because often, and we're seeing it more and more for the reasons that you stated in terms of the new CBA or the current CBA, I should say, there's a lot of incentive to move those guys up fast, especially if they're college players, they're a little older. Dylan Cruz is going to be older than a lot of the guys in single A and double A, so there was no reason for the Nats to let him languish down there, or even, do whatever down there. So they just move them all up. They move them up quickly. and we add them to the platform, so they'll be there. Usually the end of July is when players really start signing in earnest, and we keep track of it in the forums, and we'll add players, and you can just start the auctions for them and stash them until. And so really the real opportunity is for teams that are in the bottom third to start getting pieces that can either be tradable in the offseason or can be building blocks to rebuilding in the next 12 to 18 months. So
yeah,
a lot of opportunity there. Yeah.
We're going to have Keith Law on the show Wednesday to recap this year's draft. We didn't really talk a lot about the prospects prior to that, but until you know where they are and know what the path really looks like, it's not always easy to know what exactly you want to do. But the thing that's changed a lot in recent years, teams are skewing more towards college players.
Yeah.
And some of that's the player development arc and how much faster those guys can move. Some of it's the way college players get exposed to better tech and training now than they used to. I mean, a lot of the top guys on the board this year are going to come from that college pool, right? Like Ivar Arquette might be the number 1 overall pick. That's a guy that's going to go.
A lot of movement amongst those top 5 guys, right? Mm-hmm. Like the top 5, 6 guys. So no one really knows. But there are a lot of college pitchers up there that aren't the college pitchers when I was in college, right? Like college pitchers when I was in college were guys who just couldn't get drafted when they were coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. So they didn't. And these guys throw hard. Like these are college players that have really good stuff. And like you said, have really good opportunity to work with modern technology that, there's still upside for college pitchers, man. When it sounds like back in my day or whatever, but like 20 years ago, like college pitchers were like the crafty low 90s guys that you hope to fill out the back end of your rotation with. They weren't like top end frontline starters, and that is like in the last 3, 4 years, 5 years, that has totally changed, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking back at the 2005 draft right now, just a trip down memory lane. That was the year Justin Upton went 1-1. Alex Gordon went 2. Jeff Clement was the 3rd pick in that draft. Then it was Ryan Zimmerman, Ryan Braun, Ricky Romero, who did pitch in college. He was out of Cal State Fullerton, and Troy Tulowitzki. Top of that draft was real good. And then we had Wade Townsend out of Rice. That was a bust pick. Mike Pelfrey had a big league career out of Wichita State, but it wasn't dominant stuff. I mean, it was more that projected, like that back end innings eater type.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Pelfrey was a great Major League Baseball pitcher. Like he pitched well in the majors for a long period of time. He was never Paul Skeens,
right?
Or like what Chase Burns is looking like now, or whatever. Like these guys that are coming out throwing gas for 6 innings and just being able to be like, yeah, I will be your frontline starter. Like Mike Pelfrey is a great major league player, but he's not what we're talking about now. So it's very exciting when these guys start getting added. The bids are very fun. A lot of guys you can start thinking of as being, again, like the way we were talking about Cam Schlittler, like maybe you want to throw $8-9 at him because he could be an $11 fun starter for you next year, and then $15 or $16, and then he's your frontline guy. Like that's really good value. It doesn't sound like great value on July 31st, 2025, but on March 1, 2027, you're really happy you did that, so you just sort of have to take a little bit of a longer play with these guys.
Yeah, but that's what like Liam Doyle and Kate Anderson, they're probably going to move pretty quickly. One of those guys is likely going to go to the Angels. So, I mean, the end of this season's a possibility for whichever direction they go.
Not a lot blocking him. So
yeah, exactly. Immediate need and opportunity. And that's just the way they want to run player development right now. So that's the way it goes. We had a few people in our Discord asking if anyone runs mid-season fantasy baseball leagues, and the answer is largely no. I don't really see anyone that has open contests where you can just by yourself go and sign up for a team. But Ottoneu, actually, you have a nice special that you run now where people can start a new league and get the rest of the season free.
Yeah, so this is just calling it a special. This is just what we do. Ottoneu is a time-intensive game. A lot of people miss the window because the window for us is a little earlier in the off season because the drafts are longer. It's a little bit more of a time commitment up front. So leagues usually start forming in February. lot of people are looking for fantasy baseball in March and are like, man, I missed my Ottoneu window. But if you start after July 1, and this has been true for 5 years now, so we're just going to keep this going forever. If you start after July 1 in our base league, which is a $20 annual fee, you can start right now. You won't have to renew until 2027. You can do your draft, over this next week. That's the All-Star break. And you can check out the platform, get comfortable with how it works, and get a feel for the rules and all the mechanics, the stuff, Derek, you were talking about when you were getting into it. And then you're just ready to go in 2026, and you're playing it like a regular league in 2026. So we've been doing that since 2021. I do a very bad job of telling people that, but here I am telling people, like, check it out. If you missed your window at the beginning of the year, it's not too late. It's never too late. And if you want to check out this platform that we've been talking about, like, now is a great time to check it out.
Is it easier to find the 12 people to play with before you come sign up, or can you actually show up by yourself and get into a league this time of year?
It's a little, Ottoneu, again, it's a pretty intense system. We've talked about it. I'm not shying away from that. So you would intuitively think, man, I got to find my 11 other people but right now, if you are looking for a replacement owner in one of your leagues or replacement manager, or if you're trying to find 11 other people, there is a lot of latent demand out there that is just out there. And there are a lot of people that are lurking around waiting for the opportunity. Right now we've had, I don't know, maybe a half dozen leagues need replacement managers in the last month, and they're going away in 30 minutes. Like, they're getting replaced in 30 minutes from people who are new to the site, people who want to pick up a second team, whatever. So I think if you started a league and you were just like, hey, I'm throwing it out there, I think you would find some interest pretty quickly. I think there's probably enough demand for like 5 or 6 new leagues pretty quickly. And then I'm happy to help out. You can email help@ottoneu.com at any time, and I'm happy to guide you through that process. But it's pretty easy to find some people right now. You don't need to go, get people signing up on a clipboard or anything, commit themselves to it.
You can check the Ottoneu channel in the Road Rates and Barrels Discord, too, if you'd like to try and find some other folks interested in joining one of those leagues. And it's perfect because, you could do the draft over the course of All-Star Week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like kind of just run
Take your time through it.
Early part of the week, and
it's really
full rosters.
And that first draft is like the toughest one because it can take like 6-7 hours. But if you break it up over a couple nights and there's no baseball going on, so you're not sitting there wondering like, oh, I just picked this guy up, but he's pitching right now. Is there going to be an issue? Or, so it's a nice quiet time to do that and have the home run derby on or whatever and start your team.
And you can maybe daydream about some hot dogs too, because
let's do that.
Holy cow. So you were in Seattle. And,
look at those things.
I got a lot of thoughts here. First and foremost, our next live podcast may have to be in Seattle as a result of Sumo Dog, which has a really impressive menu. It looks like we got at least 3 out of the 4 dogs on the board here too. And what's amazing to me, in one of the shots, the person holding the dog, you can see it's not a child. This is a grown up holding a hot dog, and you can see to scale. The hot dog is about as big as the forearm of the person holding that hot dog.
They're calling that that's Chad Young there, so that's a full adult. Chad Young, who contributes to Fangraphs, talking about Ottoneu all the time. They call that a foot long. I think that is selling it short. It was a Godzilla dog. It was good. So these guys, man, this was it. I went on a little road trip. I've been doing this DC beat for a little while now, and I went to Cleveland and Seattle and San Francisco. This is the best ballpark food I have had maybe ever. I'm looking at like 20 plus ballparks, and this was right up there. This was incredible stuff. One, I think it's really important that ballpark food be sort of grounded in the basis of ballpark food, right? Like, we're not saying, oh, the sushi at this place was really outstanding because it was made by a Michelin star chef. I'm not looking for a gourmet restaurant I want something that's like a hot dog or peanuts or chicken tenders or a burger or something that like feels like summer and outside and proper, right? And I mean, I don't know, man. There's obviously a lot of delicious flavors in Japanese cuisine, but these guys captured it. I'm getting hungry just looking at these pictures, man.
As soon as you sent the pictures over for this week, and someday there's going to be just a lot of questions about the number of random hot dogs that are stashed away as photos on my phone. But yeah, I saw that. I was like, whoa, every single one of those looks good. And my only question was, would I eat all 3 on the same day, or would I intentionally go to multiple games just to spread it out a little bit? Because the Sumo Dogs, wasabi relish, pickled pepper, spicy mayo, teriyaki sauce, furikake, minced onion, and nori, right? So like it's perfect, like Seattle spin on the hot dog. Like if in DC they were trying to make a Seattle dog, they could have tried to do it that way. I don't know if Taste of the Majors would have gone I don't think hard into the ingredients. Like that's just
no.
Too
so like
good.
this is a chain, right? This is, or not a chain, but this is a restaurant in Seattle. This is not of T-Mobile. This is not like T-Mobile Park's food. So I could see this being outside the scope of what like a Taste of the Majors would do.
Yeah.
But man, obviously massive Japanese influence, like Seattle, and especially the ballpark, like the baseball culture of Seattle has a big Japanese push, right, with Ichiro, and historically owned by Nintendo and everything. But man, like it's just so like the umami stuff all plays, even though a hot dog is already very salty and full of flavor. Like it just all plays really well. That was not a hard hot dog to eat. The middle one, the chili cheese one, that one gave me a little bit of pause, but the third friend, what we were with, he loved it. He was like, this is my go-to. He goes to Mariners games all the time. He's like, this is the go-to dog for me at this ballpark. And then the Godzilla, I mean, you saw it. Like, it's every idea, a little bit busier. The jalapenos sort of turned me off. The foot long, or what, a foot and a half long, whatever. I don't know what kind of custom hot dog situation they're pulling there, but that thing was gone before I knew it. Like, it wasn't like these things gave anyone who ordered them pause. Like, they were just excellent. They were great. And we went to, so that was the first day I went to the game. And then I think I sent you the picture of what we ate after the game, which we can talk about in a minute. And then the next day, I really thought about going back and getting another Sumo Dog. But the first day of that Sumo Dog experience was so good that I just was like, no, you know what? I'm not messing with it. Like, I'm not going back to that well. I experienced that perfect Japanese dog, and I'm good. I don't need to go back to it.
So it sounds like Seattle overall a huge win, and there was one somewhat unpleasant surprise.
Well, I don't want to be super negative about it. It was a little, I
mean, I don't know, man. Like, so what we have, so you sent this when it came through. I think it was either Times Cooking. It must have been the Times Cooking had some Seattle style hot dogs as
a friend of mine sent that to me. Yeah.
And I saw that picture and I was like, that's not quite what I think of when I think of Seattle. I don't think of jalapenos in Seattle. I think of the things like we talked about, the Sumo Dog, right? Like those are the flavors that I think would be more in line with Seattle's food scene. And what's amazing is when you got the dog on the right outside of the ballpark, did it suggest that it was a quote unquote Seattle style hot dog? Is that how it was sold to you?
Yeah. So I was with Chad and this guy Jake. Both of them are Fangraphs writers that have been in Seattle for a little while, and they were like, look, we had the Sumo Dog. We know you just experienced the best of what we have, but if you're going to be in Seattle and you're going to be a hot dog guy, you got to try the Seattle style dog. And I'm like, all right, what's the Seattle style dog? And this is what they pitched me, was a hot dog grilled with cream cheese and grilled onions. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, listen, man, I know that sounds crazy, but we're going to go for it. We're going to go out there. We're going to get it. And if you leave T-Mobile, like when you walk out the park, there's a ton of vendors doing this. This is sort of like, I mean, a lot of ballparks have this. They just have a bunch of street food available to you outside the ballpark. not expensive. It's just available like 6 or 7 different places, just being like Seattle style dogs here, or a regular dog, or whatever you want. We walked down a little bit. We skipped a couple places that had a little bit of a line already. We got to a place that had less of a line. Jake claimed, I ordered this dog. I got this dog. You see what it looks like. Jake was sort of like, man, I think we went to a place that's a little bit less good. That's why it doesn't have a line. And Chad confirmed. Chad was like, no, this is what they look like. This is what they are. Like, don't romanticize it. Don't think it looks like that photo on the left. This is what a Seattle dog is. A couple things to note. These onions are not grilled. Like they're very it's just sort of cursory wet.
Okay, so tell. Like half grilled or steamed or something, but definitely not like the grilling that you really want.
Right. I mean, you know what a grilled onion should be like if you're trying to put it up on a hot dog. This is not that. There's no char on it. It's not great. The bun is more of a hoagie roll. So that was a little disappointing. It was not, a proper fitting. You can see it's falling apart. The cream cheese was applied through a cake frosting bag, which
that's one way to get it on there.
Both visually and audibly, not the way you want to present cream cheese. Ultimately, we are putting cream cheese with something that is sort of salty and smoky, and not unlike putting cream cheese on a bagel with lox or whatever, with a smoked fish. That was what they wanted me to imagine when I ate the thing. And I was like, yeah, okay, you know what? I can squint and I can see it. I wish I had eaten that hot dog on the left, though, because that looks a lot better to me. It was, I don't know. I guess they're assuming you've had a lot of beers in that game and you're coming out and you'll just put anything in your stomach. And in this case, it was not totally true. And as such, the Seattle dog itself kind of missed. I'm not going to be surprised if we get a little feedback after people see the segment that's like, that was actually a pretty bad Seattle dog. Chad assured me that this was typical for a Seattle dog, but I can't believe that. I can't believe that that's how Seattle dogs go. I have to believe Seattle does better than that.
I would say almost certainly. The Times write-up had a note saying that it was created in 1988 by Hadley Long, a street vendor in Pioneer Square during grunge's heyday. And I thought that when I saw the hot dog, I'm like, that is a grungy looking hot dog. So I'm glad the timing checked out on that one. But it's I think the cream cheese thing is one that you could take that as your note for the day. I'm like, yeah, next time I have a hot dog, maybe I'll put a little cream cheese on the bun. I don't recommend the icing bag. I think the sour cream gun they have at Taco Bell would probably be the thing they
that's a much better, right?
To apply that correctly and not have the weird sound. Just spread it on there.
Just spread it on there. Yeah. I think, when we get to these regional hot dogs, like these ones that are actually of the city, this is of the city, not of the area around T-Mobile Park, but it's like the Seattle city dog, like you said, Pioneer Square. So the thing about that is that you start running into limitations on separating yourself, right? Like what a Coney dog, Detroit style hot dog, is a thing you could also get on Coney Island in New York, right? Like we don't have a huge range of things that cities are willing to say, this is what we do. So I think, cream cheese, it's good. It's we should applaud the effort, I think. If you were making it by yourself, I think you could do better execution than that guy did in that alley outside T-Mobile.
Yeah, you can get the recipe if you really want to. They're out there, so give it a shot. But Greek chili dogs are the ones that were big where I grew up in West Michigan, and I am certain there's nothing about them that came from Greece. Like there's absolutely no actual Greek influence on that product, but it's called a Greek chili dog, and I have to do more research into it because it's a little bit, I think, similar to a Coney Island dog with chili on it.
Right.
I think that's more or less what it is. But Yeah, we'll dig into that for a future episode, an investigation for maybe next
regional
week.
hot dog investigation. We can talk about it.
Go back to my hometown, eating a bunch of Greek chili dogs and writing a story about it. It's exactly what I thought I'd be doing when I grew up.
Hey, look, man, we're hitting new heights here. We're hitting new heights. Our next hour being the Nats, next home game, the next one I'm going to go to, it's right after the All-Star break. On the Monday, the Reds are in town. If I don't make the weekend series, I'll be going to the Reds game. And Cincinnati has a pretty famous regional hot dog, Skyline Chili, which is where they put the spaghetti and the sloppy Joe sauce, and they call it chili on the hot dog. And it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to think about. Very Ohio. I'm excited to see if the Nats even try to tangle with that. I'm very interested. So I'll have a report back on that in a couple weeks.
I hope they do. We got a future report coming up on what is and what isn't a hot dog, too. We're getting some chatter in the Discord about that. So be sure to join the Discord if you haven't already.
We need to clear that up. Yeah, there's some real banter happening about this. I don't know. Putting spaghetti on a hot dog starts getting real weird. So
it seems weird, but hey, I'm here for weird. But we appreciate the time and the insight, Niv. Have a great weekend. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Derek. Talk to you soon, man.
We are going to go. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We are back with you on Wednesday. Enjoy the Derby and the All-Star game.